Aló? Oh. Hey guys, is this working? Can everyone hear me? You just say yes or yo or something like that so I can see if it works. О, работает. О. Привет всем. Боксима. Hello guys. It's been a little while, but I'm back. It's nice to have you. Привет. Alexander, привет. So nice. Let's see. How's everyone doing? Are we ready for some old church Slavonic memes? So you have to excuse me because actually it's like 32 degrees right now. It basically means that I'm in a pretty small room without a fan or anything. So I'll be drinking a lot of water. So if you just hear the mic pausing or something like that, it's because it's way too warm right now. So today we'll be continuing with the lists of streams that I did before, like I think a few months ago. Yeah, Celsius, yeah. So yeah, it's list of streams I did before. We'll be covering the book or primer in English that was created for the son of Tsar Pyotr, so Peter the Great. It was custom made. This primer is called Bukvarь Истомина, which means nothing more than the primer of Istomin, which is the guy who wrote it, Carrion Istomin. And we'll be covering the next four letters. So the previous ones, in the previous streams, we covered A until P. And today we're going to be covering R, S, T, U. So we're going to be covering four different ones. It's going to be nice because there's actually a lot of beautiful Greek, Old Church Slavonic even, Old East Slavic and even modern Russian examples in this piece. So it's going to be quite something. Before we start, I do want to say one thing. I want to say a special thank you to a guy called Van Dog, who has helped me out immensely with partially translating this piece. He's a Russian native, incredibly nice guy, incredibly helpful, and we put like 2 hours into this. It took me like 8 hours to prepare this stream, so it's quite something. It's just a lot of different things, a lot of different words I have to look up, and it will be difficult, but it's going to be nice. So a special thank you to him. Like, братан, ты мне очень сильно помог. Спасибо тебе большое. Then I want to thank two friends of mine, two Greek friends. So that's Julius and Leonidas for helping me out with the Greek stuff, simply because my Greek is I'm not that fluent or not that good. I'm barely A1. So they helped me out with some of the Koine translations that we'll encounter. So thank you guys. Furthermore, I want to thank some of the guys of the pre-ref group for helping me out with some other Russian and Old East Slavic translations. So thank you very much. And I also want to thank Grisha for helping me out for translating a part of the stream. Without all of you guys, all of this wouldn't have been possible. So thank you so much. Then also, I'm not a linguist. I am just a guy that likes languages a little too much. I'm not even a Russian native, so I'm a Croatian native. So if I make any mistakes in pronunciation-wise or Russian-wise, you know why. This is just the conclusions I came to. And what else? Yeah, I think we can start. Let's see. So this. There we go. So this is the stuff that we covered last time, right? the start of the book. Bukvár, Istomin. There we go. We haven't actually covered this because it's a lot of text. Now we have Bukvár, starting off with alpha, and so on and so on and so on. All of these can be found in the old videos. So today we'll be covering letter R. There we go. And just like the previous time, we're gonna do this laid back. So I'm gonna be looking at the pictures first, and then we're gonna analyze the text that was written. Sometimes the text kind of contains some mistakes or it mixes different registers, but we'll come to there once we're there. So the first letter that we're going to cover is the letter R. And as you guys already might know, back in the 17th century, actually up until the start of the 20th century, Russian didn't use the modern names of, well, officially didn't use the modern names of letters, which means that every letter had an Old Church Slavonic, well, slightly revised Old Church Slavonic name. Or Russified Old Church Slavonic names, meaning that all the letters had actual names of words that were associated with that letter. And sometimes poems were written about these letters, which means that the letter re wasn't simply called re, but it was called rci. So the name of this letter in Old Church Slavonic and in pre-Reform Russian was rci. Rci is the imperative form of the verb rieshti. And rieshti means to say. So the imperative form would be you say, right? You have to say something. And every letter, just like in, let me check. Just like in the olden days, had a value, meaning that a letter didn't simply have a meaning, but it also had a numerical value. And in the case of the letter R, the numerical value was 100, meaning that if you wanted to write down the number 100, you wouldn't use the Arabic numeral system that English uses and modern Russian uses, but you would use the Cyrillic system. So you would write the letter R. And right now you can see the different types of R. So this is the beautiful initials. The initials were usually, they were capitalized and had beautiful forms. So we can see that one here, and then you see the RR different ones. Then you can see the shorthand versions. So this is the letter R, also kind of beautiful with the twirl, and then some other ones. And interestingly, all of these pages also contain obviously the Greek spelling. So we have the Greek spelling, which is the same as the Cyrillic one because that's where it comes from. And we have the Polish one because Polish played a very big role in the development of the Russian language in the 16th and start of the 17th century. That's when a lot of different Polish words got borrowed into the Russian language. And it played quite a huge role, not only linguistically, but also historically. So we can see the Polish spellings of the letter. So that's the Latin R. And the different words. The first word we can see is rak. And this is the same, it has the same meaning as the modern Russian word, and that would be crayfish or a crab even. Which you can see right here, drawing. And the second one, this is actually interesting, it's riza. By the way, the accents indicate where the stress is. So even in one syllable words, you will see the different accent indications. So riza is the second one, and riza is a chasuble. I think that's how you say it in English. And that's basically the garment that priests wear. So in the Orthodox Church, there's actually a second name for this, and that would be filon, which is specifically for Orthodox priests. And then you have a second word for Catholic priests, and that would be kazula. I don't know where you put the stress. So you have different names. And riza was basically a word that combined both meanings, and it was specifically used for priests. So if a priest would put on their garment or their clothes, you would call that riza. And interestingly, in the Old East Slavic times, this also meant just clothes, any type of clothes. So that would be a shirt or a blouse or something like that. All of these things combined would mean clothes or riza. But in this case, in the case of this primer, it probably means something more fancy. So something the priest would wear, right? And then we have let's go on to this one. This is something that's still very common in Russia, in saunas. It's called rozga. And in Old Church Slavonic, this word meant a twig or a branch. But in modern Russian, this means a birch rod, which is used for cleaning, or you can use it in a sauna. But it's also used as a cane for whipping, which was the case in pre-revolutionary times. Obviously, this was more common back then. Cane would be used to discipline children, and that would also be called rozga. And there's actually a line in Pushkin's work, and it basically says "Tak odzeru тебя rozгую." So I'm gonna beat you up with this stick, что ты и своих не узнаешь. So hard, so tough that you will not be able to remember your own, just because of the discipline. And then the other one, the next one, we can see rogatina, and this is a special spear that was used 300 years ago, 500 years ago for killing bears, and it was known for being incredibly tough, long, and very thick, simply because obviously a bear is a very strong animal, so it had to be used. Special like spears had to be used to be able to contain these animals. And there's a lot of pictures and paintings with people with these spears because it was seen as an elite weapon, not a weapon of war, but not a weapon of war, but a weapon. Just a sec. How can I? Let's see if I can do this. Oh, it works. Okay, nice. Wait. Okay. So, the next one, let me check. So the next one would be this scepter that you can see. Now this is not a regular scepter. This is a scepter which is very popular or very known in the Orthodox Church. And it says ripida. Ripida. And ripida actually comes from Greek because most of these ecclesiastical terms or terms related to the church come from Greek, as the Greeks introduced Christianity to the Slavs. And the term itself comes from the Greek word ripidion, which means fan. And in the olden days, actually, it still happens. It's a ceremonial fan used in Eastern Christian worship. And by Eastern Christian, I mean the Orthodox churches and the Eastern Oriental churches, like the Armenian Church. And in the Russian Orthodox Church, they're often used to honor a particularly sacred icon or relic. So they hold quite, tremendous value. And most priests or the Eastern Christian bishops will have these, and they will be used in special occasions and in special sermons. And usually these scepters contain a picture of a seraphim. And a few months ago, I believe, there was this meme that started circulating with a guy who saw an angel. Not a guy, it was just a drawing. And like how I imagine seeing an angel and what an angel actually is. You see these rings with these like 1,000 eyes and black wings, and maybe some of you guys know what I mean. But that's a seraphim. And obviously that's how they are portrayed, right? So they are usually have 6 wings, and they are this abstract unit, basically, существо, a thing, an angel which is considered to be the highest class of angels. So in Christian theology, you have these different ranks of angels, and Seraphim is seen as the highest one or the most important one. And in the Western Rite, so in the Roman Catholic Church, you actually also have these, and there are also types of angels depicted as a wheel. And in the Western Rite, so in the Western Christian churches, you also have this fan. It doesn't look like this, but it has a more archaic look, more like an actual fan. And in the Western church, this is called flabellum, which comes from Latin. And it actually, both of these fans come from pagan practices. So back in the Egyptian days, like if you watch an Egyptian movie, you see these big poles with fans on them. That's basically where all of this comes from. So I read this piece of a guy, some bishop, who was commenting on using them in like the 3rd century, but they have been popular throughout the Christian world for ages. Oh, hey, James. So the next one, if you know modern Russian, this one will be familiar. It's rubacha, and the modern Russian form would be rubashka, and this is nothing more than a shirt. So a simple shirt. Something that I was talking about with Dog a few hours ago was that maybe back in the 17th century, something like riza still meant a normal piece of clothing, but more fancy, formal, and rubacha was for the common folk. So for the common folk that would use it just regularly, right? Then the next one, ryba, this is fish, same thing in Russian, it didn't change. The next one would be rog, which also didn't change, that's a horn. Rukavica, so this phrase is still used in Russian, but not that often. Or it depicts a different type of glove. And in modern Russian, the word perchatka is preferred. At least that's what I heard. So if you go outside, I don't think a lot of people are going to say rukavica, надо взять рукавицу. They're going to say надо взять перчатку. Right? Perchatki, because it's plural. Funny thing, in South Slavic, at least in Croatian, we still use this, but we say rukavica, and the plural would be rukavice. And then we have this one, ruka, same thing in Russian, or modern Russian, that would be hand. Riepa, with the yat, which was still pronounced like an iye at this time. It wasn't like the modern Russian ye sound. So riepa, that would be turnip. Same thing in Russian, it didn't change. Rietka, so this one did, in quite an interesting way. So the t sound actually became d. So rietska. And this one, it's also quite an archaic word. Some places still use it, but sita is preferred, or sita. But this is resheto. And this is basically a sieve, which you use in cooking, baking, making cakes, and stuff like that. So let's cover this first text. Ooh, it's gonna be it's gonna be difficult. So I usually do it like this. I prepared this, but I'm not 100% sure that everything that I did is correct. So if you guys have any suggestions, or you think that a word means something else, please let me know. Just type it down in the chat and just let me know. And I'm gonna read all of the comments just to make sure, so we can do this together. Daniel, why is the pre-reform orthography we see in the page we see? So that's a great question. That is because the usage of the letter yat. So just some history. The letter yat actually had an a sound in the Old Church Slavonic days, and this sound basically developed differently in different regions, right? So in standard Croatian you have iye and ye, in Russian you have ye, and then in Serbian you have e, In Bulgaria, you have two different realizations. So you ya and ye, or e ya. So this is a very, very important letter. The thing is that the old scribes were extremely inconsistent with the usage of the letter yat, meaning that every scribe basically knew where to put it, but wouldn't put it there all the time. They would sometimes forget it. They would sometimes put it in places where it didn't belong. Sometimes they would not use any at all. A good example is this painting or picture I encountered from the 16th century, in which you saw the city of Moskva, and there was a river there, and the river didn't contain a yat, so it was written reka. But in the word reka, there's a yat. You should write it with a yat, but the writer opted not to. This is something that we will probably encounter. Just a second. This is something that we actually encountered before. So in some other stream I don't remember which one, we actually encountered a word which should contain the yat, but it doesn't. Thank you, Porsa. Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. So let's see. So basically, to answer your question in short, it's very inconsistent. Also because this was the period, well, just after this period, oh, nice, welcome. So just after this period, the quality of the yat started changing, meaning it slowly started disappearing. And eventually the sound merged with a ye sound, which is used in modern Russian. Unified standardized orthography is quite a recent thing. Good example. Yeah, so I'm not that familiar with English, but Russian, привет, yo. So in Russian, standardized orthography is something that only started in the beginning of the 18th century. So with Peter the Great and his reforms of 1704 and 1708, the orthography got standardized. But okay, let's start. So we have the name of the letter, rci, pismeno se. By the way, so during this period, there was no reduction in Russian, at least not that we know. So all of the O's are going to be read like O's, and I will not reduce any vowels, just like in modern Church Slavonic. So rci, pismeno se. So rci, to say, you have to say what is written here. So say what is written here. I galayer with a titlo. Titlo means that a word is shortened. It used to be used for nomina sacra, meaning that the word God was never written like God, but it would be shortened. But during this period, a lot of words got shortened, even though they didn't have any holy connotations. So this actually means a glagol, and glagol in Russian means verb, but in the olden days, this also meant word. So, and the word rci, and the word rci, tvorit, so you will create, and the word rci, you will create. And then we have ruka, shedra. So this is actually the same in Russian. So the hand, the generous hand, ruka shedra, dobro всем говорит. So the generous hand speaks good, добро in Russian, so dobro всем, to everyone speaks. The generous hand speaks good to everyone. Ризу воздень, so put on the chasuble. Рыбу есть. This is a very interesting word. So people familiar with the old text actually might know that this is the word есть. And есть has two meanings in Russian. The first one is to be, and the second one is to eat. Привет. So you have to eat. This is the old form. You have to eat the fish. And this part is interesting. So rog не возноси. So rog, which is the horn, but in this case, it doesn't only mean horn, but it means something you drink out of, right? Не возноси. So возноси. So don't lift the horn, which means don't drink alcohol. Like you will eat the fish and you will not drink, or you shouldn't drink alcohol because it's bad, right? I'll just drink some water. I did lift the horn, but it's filled with water, so that's fine. And then we have the next one. Смиренных блаженстве, блаженств, which means humble bliss, u Boga. So this is the shortened form you can see right here. This is the nomina sacra, as they're called. So the sacred words, nomina sacra, in God si prosi. Prosi. So in God, or to God in this case, you can ask. So you can ask humble bliss. You can ask God for humble bliss. Now we have the next one. Rubacha biela. I wish there was no standard English orthography. That would be more fun. So the white shirt, and you can see that this is actually the short form. So Russian doesn't really use them that often. It still has the short and long forms. But in Russian, this would be bielaya rubashka. So bielaya. But in this case, it's rubacha biela, right? So the white shirt, which indicates cleanliness or purity because it's white. Праздник есть младым. So праздник, that would be holiday or something like a festival, is to the young one. So on holidays, on festivals, something like that, one has to wear this white shirt, which is this old Christian tradition, and it indicates this cleanliness or cleanliness of the soul, basically. And then we have душевна белость. This is again very ecclesiastical, so this is very obviously connected to the church, and this means mental. Душевна, so related to the mental or soul, dusha, whiteness, so the purity of the soul. Не бойся грому. So don't be afraid of the thunder. Не бойся, same thing in Russian. Don't be afraid of the thunder. Spiritual. Yeah, so душевна, I think in modern Russian only means spiritual, but in South Slavic, this isn't afraid, yeah. So in South Slavic, this would mean just of the soul itself. So v, in, resheto, potreb. So in the sieve is the need. S, bieri, rietku, rietku, riepu. So with it, you can take the turnip and a radish. So to cook them, use them for cooking. And hey, Rafael, nice to have you, man. And then ayat, we can see it right here, sey, which means to sow. Sow in v narod. And then we have milost. So milost is something that is in theology is regarded that comes from God for religious people, and it means mercy. So sow mercy in the people and in the nation. And then we have bogatu, da bogatu I slepu. So in the people, mercy for the to, actually, because it's the dative, bogatu, to the rich, bogat meaning rich, and to the blind. So it doesn't matter if you're blind or if you're rich, mercy has to be shared, right? And then we have v, pravde, pochodzisz, I без рукавицы. This is a very, very interesting and difficult sentence. So, вправде, same thing in modern Russian, that would be in justice or in truth. But походишь in the olden days didn't only mean to move. So, ходить, to go, to move, it actually also meant to exist. So you will exist in justice or in truth, и без рукавицы. So you will exist in justice and truth, even or and in gloves, or without gloves. So even if you don't have gloves, even if you don't have shoes, обувь, it doesn't matter, you will still exist in justice and truth. Okay, and then the question, why do you read the letter G like the English G in church text or pronounce like the letter G? Okay, so the thing is, the pronunciation of G comes from Kiev. So the standard language, the standard Old Church or Church Slavonic language actually use this G sound, which follows the first Eastern recensions, which was obviously in Kiev. I'm reading this with a G simply because, first of all, that's more natural for me because that's the one I use, and second one, because this is not a church text. So this is not a theological text. If it was, I would use the G, the Ukrainian G, but this is just a primer. So this would be read with probably at least with a Russian G sound. So вправде походишь и без рукавицы. And then the last one would be везде бо. So normally bo in Old Church Slavonic actually means for. So everywhere for, in love. But in this case, it's just an emphatic marker. So it's actually everywhere in love, в любви. Устретят тя лице. So everywhere, or you will meet, устретят тя, so тебя лице, so you will meet people, or you will meet faces, which is obviously metaphorical, so you'll meet people in love everywhere, but not in love as in they are in love, but дружелюбивы. So you will meet them being like through the kindness of their hearts, and you will meet good people everywhere, basically. Is do here like je? Exactly. And that's bo. So this would probably be like je. I remember Doc told me that this is very common. I haven't encountered this myself because for me, at least, this looks like the Old Church Slavonic bo, meaning for. But yeah, so this is just, at least probably this is an emphatic marker. There we go. If there are any questions, please let me know, and I will get to them as we go along. So the next one. The next letter would be letter S. And does anyone actually know the name of this letter? Because, okay, more stuff. Just a sec. There we go. So does anyone actually know the name of this letter? Because as I said, every letter has an actual name, an official name. And does anyone know? Exactly, slovo, meaning word. So the name of this letter was word. And we can see the different forms, the beautiful S1, SS, these ones as well, shorthand versions, even though it's not that shorthand, to be honest. Then we have the Greek ones, which is sigma, and of course the Polish ones. So S, this is the long S, which is still used in, at least a form, is used in German, which the SZ sounds, they got put together in one ligature or one digraph, and it became one thing. Was there some consistency between writing U as a digraph and we're going to cover that in like an hour. So just hold on to that question. We're going to come there in a second. What does the year do after a vowel? There's no. That's impossible. There cannot be a year there. Yeah. So let's move on. So this is the obviously this is the form S. You see it right here. Looks a bit more like a sigma, to be honest. But okay, some more pictures. Let's go. First one, сердце. Same thing in Russian, didn't change. This would be heart. And then the second one, this is struchec. This is actually a pod, a pea pod. This form is not used in modern Russian anymore. There we go. Some isn't, or this is not used in modern times anymore, but it's called struchok in modern Russian. It actually has a second meaning in Church Slavonic, so now in modern Russian, and that's this anointing brush used to administer sacred oils. So it's this small little brush that's used in church, but obviously that one isn't drawn here. So yeah, some even continue to use the on. What do you mean exactly? Where? And then the next one, this is a drawing of some kind of kettle, right? Well, it turns out that it's not a kettle, but it's skovrada. Skovrada in Old Church Slavonic actually meant fireplace. So a place where you know, the fireplace or a pan of coals. But in Old East Slavic, the meaning actually started changing. So from pan of coals, it eventually only started meaning frying pan. And modern Russian also doesn't use this term, but it has a different term for it, and that's skavaroda. Skavarodka, with a K, I believe. And so this term is not used anymore, but the meaning is approximately the same. So it's going to be a frying pan, right? And then we have sapog, which is also still used in Russian, and that would be this military boot, a long, tall boot. Just a sec. A long boot, which basically covers the lower calf, so very high. And modern Russian also has a second term which it uses, which is batinak, and that actually comes from French. So batina comes from botin, and it's basically a boot, but it's a bit shorter. Skavaroda and stress is on the last syllable. Skavarada. Thank you, Grisha. So skavarada and sapog. So it's still used in modern Russian. And then we can go on to this one. This is a term which is kind of interesting. So stopa, because this is read like an all, stopa actually means a vessel, and it's actually a goblet for drinking alcoholic beverages. It's quite an archaic term. I heard some sentences or some constructions that still use it, but it's mostly seen as something that's quite archaic. And the modern term for something like that is ryumka, which is actually a loan word. So it entered the Russian language through Germanic influence. And it comes from the German word Roma, which means Roman. And it added the suffix ka, which basically is a diminutive, making it lil. So lil Roman is what this glass would be called. And so it turns out that there's actually a modern term as well, stopka. Nice, I didn't know that. But it's used for vodka. Понятно. Okay, then we have this one. Svieshchik. So something else, this letter, which in modern Russian is usually pronounced like sh, in this period was still pronounced like a sh. So svieshchnik, which is a candlestick. And the modern equivalent in Russian would be something like podsviechnik. But you can see the yat as well. In Croatian, we would say sviechnik. So iye again, showing that there's a yat. Then this one, which is a weapon, sablya, saber in English, which is probably a Turkish loan. Like in Turkish, there's a word, it's sap, which means handle or a stalk or a stem. So this is probably a Turkish loan because Turkish or Turkic peoples use these weapons as well. And then we have Salavier, which is still the Russian word for nightingale, or nightingale. And the interesting thing is that, we'll see in a second, is that this is the East Slavic spelling of the word. But in the text, we'll find the South Slavic spelling of the word. So you can see that even this writer is pretty inconsistent with the terms he's using. Sometimes he uses the more archaic form or the pure form, because everything related to South Slavic and Old Church Slavonic and Church Slavonic was seen as pure, while the Eastern Slavic versions were seen as more, I don't know, less pure, less formal. So we can see that. But this is still nightingale in modern Russian. And then we have societes. This is kind of difficult, but I think this is like sasok in modern, which is like the nipple or teat of a cow. The drawing is kind of weird, but in the text it does make sense. So this is probably the teat of a cow. And then the second one, we have svirel, which is this typical Russian flute, which was used and still is used. It's like a pipe. And there's an English word name for it as well, like a swirl, svirel. But it was this old Russian wind instrument that was and is still very popular, at least in reconstructions. And then we have Greek. This is the obligatory Greek word. Back then, everything that was Greek was seen as the epitome of existence. Greek was pure, nice, and pretty, because the New Testament was written in Greek, and a lot of Greek words entered the Russian language. They were mostly related to ecclesiastical topics or to the church or law. But sometimes modern or pretty common terms entered the language as well. This is a word that doesn't exist in Russian anymore. You cannot find it, and all the people I asked didn't know what it was. Even asked some Greek natives, and they don't know what this is. But this is spirida. And spirida actually comes from ancient Greek, spyris, or spiris, if you want to use modern pronunciation, and specifically from the accusative spyrida, or spirida, and that was a large basket which was used for transporting things. And if I have to believe Wiktionary, it was specifically used for transporting money. But I don't know if it had the same meaning in Russian, but it definitely meant large basket. And then we have this one. This is slon. Same thing in Russian and in Croatian as well, and it means elephant. The etymology of this word, I'll just drink a little bit. The etymology of this word is actually disputed. There's several different options, but the most known one and the most accepted one is that it comes from a Slavic source, and that it comes from sloniti se, which means to lean against. And that relates to this medieval story of a sleeping elephant who leaned against a tree and then the tree fell over. It's like this old fairy tale. There's also some other possibilities. First one is that it kind of relates to this medieval story, or the medieval Turkish word arslan. So that would be the modern Turkish word aslan, lion, or that even comes from Chinese slang, but that it kind of went through an intermediate source. Obviously, these are just theories. The most accepted one is the Slavic option. So yeah, that's the one we're gonna go with. And then the słoń in Polish. Oh, nice. Łe. Oh, the Polish łe. And then the last one, that would be snop, which is a sheaf, like a bundle of grain or wheat or something like that. And then we have the text. Okay. Во всяком слове. So in every word, юн, this is the archaic Russian word for a young person or a young one, a young man, zri tvoje сердце. So zri is the imperative form, but it can mean two different things. It can mean to see, which is archaic Russian, and it can mean mature. And in this case, it probably means mature. So through every word, or in every word, a young man will mature. So as he speaks more words, he will mature and become an adult. Да, в двоедушстве. So this is a typical South Slavic construction. So we have so that. This is a Greek calque. Двоедушстве. So actually, in modern Russian, it can also mean something like being two-faced, but in this context, it actually means doubt. And that's because this was calqued from Greek, from the psychos. So the psychos. Was basically calqued word by word, and you get двоедушстве. So so that you in doubt не будет в нем. So there's no yo sound. The lovely yo didn't exist. Будет в нем дверце. A very interesting and difficult construction, but it basically means something that there won't be a door or there won't be a place for doubt in your heart. The next one, then we have сапоги, босы. So босы means being barefooted. В крепость обувает. So the barefooted one will put on his boots, сапоги, in the fortress. Обувает, to put on, в крепость. So in the fortress, the barefooted one will put on or will wear the shoes. Or probably in this case, this will be soldier, right? And then we have в сеть греховную. So in the net, this is still the same in Russian, сеть, in the net of sin, ног да не впадает. Let's see. Вплутает. So ног да не вплутает. So that his feet will not, or his legs or feet will not fall into the net of sin. So that your feet may not fall into the temptation or the net of sin. Now we have so с тем учением. So with the teat of knowledge, or with the teat and with the knowledge, в слове всех питайся. This is again very abstract. This is probably something like в слове всех питайся. So feed on words through the teat of knowledge. So the teat of knowledge will provide you with the adequate knowledge to function properly, basically. And then we have skляницы, сковорода и излишестве ушайся. So this would be something like the jar, right? Skляница. And then, so we have the jar and the frying pan in излишестве. So this is excess. Ушайся. This word was actually, I don't think it's part of the standard Russian language anymore. I did find it in Belarusian, in which it meant to be careful or be aware of something. So be aware of excess. And in this case, this probably means something like be aware of excessive drinking, because that's the bottle, right? The flask. end of eating, because the frying pan will represent something like food. And then we have свирель, через. So this is the Old Russian form of through. Людей, so through the people. This flute. Slavi, this is the South Slavic form. South Slavic form of соловей. Sam, alone, спевает. So the nightingale will actually praise this flute through the people. And then we have a funny sentence. А слон без дела. And an elephant without action, without поступление, without something, or without movement or work. В гульбе унывает. So gulba in modern Russian. So will be depressed, or will be cast down or disappointed at the fair. Parada. So he will be depressed at the fun fair. And slon, in this case, it will just, what's meant is probably just a normal person, so not the actual animal, obviously. And then we have свещник, поставь, so put the candlestick, and this would be snop, дай рукояти. So рукояти, you will think it means something like hands, right? Ruka. But in this case, it actually, it's this archaic Russian term used for a sheaf as well, but like a different form. So sheaves will be handled or will be put into sheaves. So you'll make sheaves out of sheaves, but a different size, something like that. It's a very, very complicated construction. Rukovate. Rukoyate in this case could also be something like you need to handle the sheaves. But I think it has something to do with the older, like verstach, right? Like the old Russian word for kilometer or the old measurement. This is also something like that. And then we have не будешь стручься. So you won't do a pod, or you won't do a pod. В старость занимати. So занимати is заниматься, so to do something. Занимаешься, like to work. But in this case, it actually means to borrow. Hey there. So in your old age, you won't borrow a pod, right? You won't borrow a pea pod, something like that. Sheaf. Sheaf is an English word, yeah. It's a bundle of grain or sticks. Sheaf. There's a word in modern Russian, slonyatsa, which means to ramble, not an expression, slonyatsa без дела. Maybe that was a pun. Interesting. Slonyatsa. Ramble. That's actually not. Wait. Slonyatsa. It does make sense, right? It would make sense. But it's really difficult. This is one of the most difficult parts I've read until now, because it's very, very inconsistent. And the constructions are kind of strange sometimes. So we can go on. We're halfway. A native English speaker. Yeah, so it's spelled like this. You've probably never heard it because I don't think you work on the land. To be honest, I never heard of that word before either. But that's, English. So the next letter would be the letter T. And exactly, Daniel said it already. This is the word, or the name of this letter would be tвердо or tвердо. In modern Russian, it has a yo, so it would be tвердо. But in this period, that sound wasn't around yet, so it was tвердо. And then we have letter T, different spellings. This one can actually be seen in one of my videos that I copied. I drew it. Different forms. Then we have this version, which we will encounter in the text itself. This is the long T, which you can see sometimes. Then we have the Greek one, which is the exact same. and the Latin one, which is also the same. And then we go on to the next part, which is the pictures. Oh, this is gonna be good. So 7, yeah. So the first word would be truba. Same thing in Russian, it didn't change, and that would be trumpet, a trumpet or a pipe. Then we have this one, that's topor, which is an axe, didn't change. Then we have tikva, or tykva, in Russian, and that is a pumpkin. And the funny thing is that this word actually comes from, obviously from Proto-Slavic, but it comes from the word tyky, which was, I don't know, I found it pretty funny, tyky instead of tikva. Then the next one is two words, which the meaning is pretty, I don't know, contentious. There was even like an article written on this because they weren't quite sure what this was meant to represent. And that is, we can see two, well, it looks like plates, right? We can see a left plate and we can see a right plate. Just a sec. There we go. We can see two different types or two objects. The left one, turns out that the left one is actually a plate, but the spelling, it contains a yet. And the modern Russian word is tarielka. And it turns out that tarielka isn't a Slavic word. It comes from Germanic, from Middle High German. My Middle High German is bad, so it was something like talir, talier, something like that. And in modern German, that would be something like tela. And Russian had this tendency to copy Germanic words and add a yat whenever Germanic used iye. So something like talia, it has e, and the ye sound, it was copied into Russian with a yat, because back then iye in Russian was a yat. Or something else, another example would be ziel, or ziel in German, which was copied into Russian as cel, or in Croatian like cilj. So in Croatian, the Ikavian yats was used, which is why it's cilj, and in Russian it's cel. Vienna. Yeah, exactly. Vienna, perfect example. So the capital city of Austria, Vienna. So instead of iye, they would use a yat. So this is why they wrote a yat, and then it has toriel. So the accent is on the yat as well. And this was just meant to represent a normal plate, right? Tarielka. And I have this. So it's kind of difficult to see what this is. It might look like some kind of fancy plate or something related to the church. But I think that this is the old currency that was used in the Germanic countries, which is a thaler, this old silver coin, and it entered the Russian language eventually and became tarel. But you can see that it has a yer, meaning it's tarel. So in this case, it was tarel. There's also the second option, which is the one I found in an article, and that is that the writer of the article suggests that there is not a thaler, but that this is actually a discos. And a discos is this plate, basically, used in the Orthodox Church. It's like a liturgical vessel, and it's used for in special occasions. And it actually comes from Greek diskos, right? So the writer of that article actually suggests it comes from Greek and that it's related to the church. But I don't know. That might be the case. I don't think we'll ever know. But the most, I don't know, obvious option would be something like a thaler, right? The Germanic coin, simply because of the drawing. It kind of looks like it just a little bit, but it's difficult. And then we can go on to this animal, and this is a game bird actually. So that would be Teterev, and this is a black grouse in English. It's a large game bird which was hunted. It was extremely common in Russia, and it was hunted quite often. And then we have, do you know what I don't get the 3 lines is quicker to write than 1, so maybe there's some other reason, or maybe it's the list. So this is actually, if you mean this, right, that's probably what you're referring to. So topor. This version of the letter T has been around for so many centuries. I don't really know where it comes from, but you can see it in the 14th century. It's really, really common in the early 19th century, and especially when Peter came to power, so that would be the early 18th century. All of the publications use this T. I don't really know why. It's a good question, but I don't know, I'm sorry. So then we have tomar. This is not, or it doesn't come from Slavic, but this is actually an arrowhead. But it's an arrow with a blunt end, and it was usually made out of bone and used for hunting small fur-bearing animals, mostly in Siberia and the eastern parts of the empire. The etymology of this word is kind of contentious. Different dictionaries offer different options, but the one that's used quite frequently is that it comes from a Mongolic language, or a language that was spoken near Alanets, which is a city, or it comes from some kind of Uralic language that was or is spoken in Siberia. But specific examples are usually not given, so I'm not sure. But it usually just refers to the front part of an arrow. And that will also refer to in the text, but we're going to see that in a minute. And then we have Nikola Tesla. So we have, that would be Tesla. In Russian, this is spelled with an O, Tesla, which is an adzi in English. And that's this cutting tool, and it has a curved blade, which you can actually also see in this picture, even use some perspective. And it's this curved blade set at an angle, which makes it quite easy in shaping wood. It was a very common tool back in the day. And we have two more or two words left. This one is has a lot of different meanings. So this actually comes from Turkic language. And the etymology I found is that it came from Ottoman Turkish, which then, through different contexts, came to Tatar, and it eventually came to Russian. And it's tokmak. And in this case, it means a pestle. So a mortar and a pestle that you use for it's like this round-headed stick, which you can use to crush leaves and other ingredients, basically, to make potions, if you want to put it like that. And it can also mean a small mallet, like a small hammer. And in Tatar, the meaning shifted, and nowadays it means chastushka, which is this very funny, short Russian, typical Russian poem or song that's sang, and it's usually very vulgar, but it's like this light-hearted humor. It has a very upbeat tune, and it's sang by both men and women, but very, like, a lot of usually, at least the videos I saw, it's women singing it, but they sing like a lot of different things and about life and complaining about their husbands and stuff like that, but most of them are very vulgar. So yeah, so people write that like and then the last one would be Taz. And, привет, Andro. Nice to have you. And that's also a Turkic borrowing. So this would be another Turkic borrowing. And in Tatar, they still use the same term, tas. And it actually comes from Persian, tas. And that's an archaic, if understood it correctly, an archaic Persian word, which means a cup or a bowl. And in Russian, it also means pelvis. Nowadays, an anatomical word, but it's a basin, so something that you use to clean dishes with, or in, I should say, or put stuff in, basically. And then we could go on to the text, penultimate text. So tвердое слово. So the letter T, the name, or the hard letter, the firm letter, делает постоянство. So does, this is the archaic Russian form of делать. So this is the archaic Russian form. And then постоянство, which means constancy. So the hard letter or the firm letter or the letter T will or accomplishes constancy. Now we have труба, глаз, дает. So the trumpet gives a voice. This is basically the same thing as a modern Russian. Людям, всем, изgnanstvo. Значит, людям, всем, весть, wait. Труба, глаз дает людям весть и знанство. My bad. So the trumpet gives a voice to the people, because this is the dative, весть. So this would be news. Oh, there we go. So news and knowledge. Znanstvo, it's still used in Croatian, which means knowledge. So it provides people with news and knowledge. And then we have toriel, which is the left one. So a plate on the table. Toriel na stole. Istomin, should have just spoken English. Oh, nice to have you, man. So on the table. Tarel pered. That would be the East Slavic version, but this is the more pure form, right? The Slavic one, pred. Pred toboju. So a table, a plate on a table, and a taler in front of you, or a diskos in front of you, but it's probably the coin, right? The money. Then we go on. Topor I teslu. So this would be the axe and the adzi, yun imye s soboju. So young one, imye, have or carry with yourself. So a young one, a young man should always carry with himself this axe, right? And this other tool. Typical for the late, well, it's not even Middle Ages anymore, it's the early modern period. And then we have v in domu, vdobu, potreben. So at the home or in the home is needed. In the home is needed. Tokmak, we can see that the letter K is flying. Tokmak, tomar, strielny. But look at this. Tokmar with a yer, and this is tomar with a yer. So this is again inconsistency. Same writer, same text, but he cannot decide, or he made a mistake on which version he should use. So this would be read as tomar, and this would be like tomar, like to take in Spanish, and this would be tomar. So the palatalized R, right? So tokmak, so that would be pestle. And the arrowhead of an arrow, strielny. This is a yat. So in Croatian we say striela. So yeah. Хорошо. Next one would be не буди в людях. Don't be among people. Тетерев бездельный. This basically means don't be lazy. Don't be a useless bird among people. This is again very abstract language. Then the next one would be pre. So this is one way. This is something else that's quite difficult. So in these texts, you can never really see where a sentence starts and where a sentence ends. There's something we'll see in just a second. My mom has told me that modern Croatian sounds like archaic Russian. I'll just finish this first and I'll comment on that. So you never really know where a sentence starts. This was the period where apostrophes and stuff weren't really used. So this looks like one word, but it's not. It's actually two different words. So pri, starych, so in front or among or in the presence of your elders, tvirdo. So firmly, basically, naučишься žiti. So among your elders, you will learn how to live and experience life, but firmly. So they will teach you, not necessarily teach you, but, well, you will be taught to live life the way it should be experienced, right? Now, my mom has told me, okay, so there's this podcast called Arzamas. It's also a YouTube channel on YouTube, and they make videos, usually not about linguistics, but they have a short series on the evolution of the Russian language. And there's this podcast, it's like two videos. One of them basically says, I remember that at the end they talk about the evolution of the yats, yer, and these different sounds and what sounds they represented. And at the end, this guy asks, so what language should I learn to be able to understand this old text? Or what language is most similar to the Staro-Vostochny язык? So, and then the other guy says Croatian. And he plays like a short little clip. And it's kind of interesting. Croatians still use a lot of like archaic words, at least for archaic Russian. Yata, of course, I don't know about Russian, but back in Middle Dutch, there was no fixed spelling. People just throw whatever. Two people were all else literate. So spelling is often not consistent throughout a document. By the way, how is this on YouTube? Hey Yata, ik hoop dat alles goed gaat. Groetjes aan Mishko. By the word teper, we learned that the writers from the Kiev territory mostly spoke G as a fricative. By the word teper. Well, teper is also used in Russian, so I don't quite understand what you mean by that. But okay. So the next one would be tako I inych. So nice. So like that, others, inych, still used in Russian. Inych imaši učite. So у тебя есть долг. You have to teach others just the way you were taught by your elders, right? Теперь. Was it in this part? Daniel, I don't quite understand. Wait. Tierdo. I don't recall where this guy is from, but if he was teaching, which he was, the son of Peter the Great, I'm pretty sure they would use the G, but you might be correct. Anyway, такой иных имаши учите. So you have to teach the others the way you were taught, right? And then you have небесные кровли. So this would be the firmament or the roof. So кровли would be roof, or the roof of heaven. Присмотряй твердо. Now, so твердый and кровли, this is not твердо, this is not firm, but this means firmament. So you'll have to look at the firmament of heaven, and then где, so this is a continuation, где ангели, so this is this comes from Greek, the two G's, ангели ti, the old South Slavic form of to you, so the dative, where the angels to you in priyaznь. So in modern Russian, this is friendship. But приятные would be something like pleasantly, and then this is milosrdny. So in friendship and mercy and a good heart, where the angels will probably something like accept you, right? How can a word end in that letter? A word ending in that letter is extremely common. So Old Church Slavonic had this law known as the law of open syllables, which means that every single syllable, doesn't matter what part of the word it's from, should end in a vowel. And this vowel was usually yer, which is the Russian heart sign, which would probably be pronounced something like a schwa. And it had a yer, which is the modern Russian mягкий знак, which is the soft sign, and that would be something like e, which is a sound Dutch has. Привет. Yeah. So all of the syllables had to end, which is a reason why Russian always ends it with yer, at least pre-revolutionary Russian. It just continued the tradition of East Slavic and Old Church Slavonic. But yeah, I think that would be it. Very interesting drawings. Last one, guys. And probably the most interesting one. By the way, if you have any more questions, just write it down and I'll get to it in a second. Let me just drink some water. Да, старая русская курица. Конечно. Значит, this letter. Does anyone know what this letter is called? I drink water, nice. Inekala. Does anyone? Exactly, Daniel. Perfect. So, we'll encounter some problems with this name in a second. But in Old Church Slavonic, this word was uk. And in modern Russian, that would be something like nauka. Which means nauka, учение, something like studying, learning, science, learning, basically. And it had the numeric value of 400. So, the numeric value of 400. And does anyone know where this letter comes from? Because it doesn't look Slavic, right? Like, this is not... What's the origin of this letter? Does anyone know? Greece, of course. If it's related to the script, it comes from Greece. Or related to theology, it's going to come from Greece as well. So, you won't say. So basically, the history of this letter is very, very interesting. Just a sec. Exactly, mister. That's perfect. Let me see if I can find something where I can write. Just a sec. I should be able to. Hop. Notepad. Online. Oh, отлично. Отлично. Хорошо. Main screen. There we go, guys. So I'll be able to write. So the origin of this letter is from the digraph, Greek digraph, o, u. But in Greek, obviously, it was made up of two different letters, and that's the letter omicron, y. But eventually, the u sound became an e sound, so oi. But this was the digraph that was used to represent the sound u. Well, the Slavic languages also had the sound u, surprisingly. So what the creators of the Cyrillic script did was they literally copied the Greek tradition. So they copied Omicron, which was O or On, meaning he in Slavonic, and the next one was Ižica. So Y became Ižica in Russian. It was literally copied like this. But pretty soon what happened was after like some time, a second form started appearing, and that is this form. The interesting thing is that this letter and this letter are one and the same. It's Ižica. It's not U, it's OI. So OI or OU into OU. But this form eventually started appearing. And when this form appeared, this became the new standard. Everyone loved it. Everyone loved this letter. And this letter wasn't called Omicron I. This letter was called UK. Then some Old East Slavic scribes saw that this letter actually took up quite a lot of space. Especially at the end of the pages, they didn't really like to use this letter, and they thought, what should we do? Well, what if we just take the O and the Ižica and we merge them together? So they created this. Because you can see, there you go, the top part, Ižica, and the bottom part is O. That's where this letter comes from. And then in 1706 or 1708, yeah, 1708, Peter the Great reformed the script, and he banned that letter, and the only letter that was left was U. That's the evolution of this letter. Now, most people don't quite understand where this comes from. That's because it is quite complicated, simply because it's actually Omicron plus Ižica, so On plus Ižica, instead of something like O plus U, right? So, let's see. Now, the original name of this letter in Old Slavonic was, as I said, UK, but the Old East Slavic scribes didn't like only one name. They wanted to use a second one as well. Now, that name was Ik. And this is a name that is not encountered frequently, but we will encounter it in this piece. So many letters. We will actually encounter it in this manuscript. And where does Ik come from? Well, if Uk is this, then and this is Ižica, and Ižica is I, that means that it's not Uk, but Ik. That's literally the whole story. But that will cause some problems in just a sec. But just keep this in mind, okay? Keep this in mind. Perfect. Yatsi gang. So we have the Greek forms, and we can see the two different forms. Rules about when to use what. Again, this is really inconsistent. This changed every 200 years, something like that. So the full form was used at the start of a word, and this form, the first form, was used in the middle, right? So in the middle of a word or at the end. There were even some rules which basically stated that this form can only be used in front of consonants, while this one can be used in front of vowels. It changed every few centuries. It was extremely inconsistent. Even in this page, we're going to see that he basically uses whatever he wants. U, minuscule, accent. Yeah, so Pursa makes a perfect point. And that is that in Greek texts, medieval texts, you can actually also see the this one, right? You can also see this version. So maybe they took it from that. I mean, it makes sense, right? Normal writing or when quoting. I don't quite understand. So, Slavic one, different forms. This is a very common form you will see in 17th century writing. Shorthand versions. This, of course, is the other form. And it doesn't have... oh, well, it does, actually. So that would be the Polish one. So let's move on to the words. I said that this one, or this form, would only be used at the start of words, but as we can already see, this is not the case, because here they use it and here he doesn't. Here he does and here he doesn't. So it's quite inconsistent. He basically used whatever form he wanted. But let's move on anyway. So the first one, ucho, ear. Actually, so Yata asked the question about the diacritics. That's actually, I can cover that quickly. So Old Church Slavonic or Old East Slavic or pre-revolutionary Russian basically copied everything from Greek, just like everything else. So all of the Greek diacritics were copied and were used faithfully by these Slavs. This includes something like the question mark, something like the exclamation point. Everything was covered and everything was copied. So in this text, we can see a lot of different diacritics. First one would be, let's see, well, let's take this one first. So we can see the accent aigu. So this would be the acute accent, and that just indicates stress. Same thing in modern Greek. So in modern Greek, if you see the acute accent, which is the only accent that still exists, if you disregard like the double dots on top of the letter I, it indicates stress. Then we have a second diacritic, which is this one, and that would be the accent grave, and that would be the, how do you call them in English again? So that would be the grave accent. And this accent is only used on final letters. So if the accent or the stress is on the second part or the last part of the word, it will contain that accent. And this is the opposite of this, but it also indicates stress. So we can see if pismie, it falls on the last syllable, mie, so this accent is used instead of this one. We have some more ones, this one, and this one, these ones are the same. This is more of an S, and this is more of like a Y, but it's the same thing. And this in the Old Church Slavonic term for that would be yerok. And that is because it indicates that a yer or yer was omitted, meaning that this should actually be spelled like b, like oh, I cannot do that. So b or v, I should say, with a yer. But this is basically used to save space, and it looks prettier. Then we have two different breathing marks. First one is called, so this would be the psilie. Psilie is the spiritus lentis, so the soft breathing. In Greek, this basically didn't do anything. It basically only said that it was pronounced the way it was written, so it wasn't pronounced with a h sound. And the spiritus asper, I think, is the correct term. In Russian is called dasia, and in Russian it didn't do anything. So these are basically just Greek conventions which were copied into Russian and Old Church Slavonic, but they didn't indicate anything. And the usage is extremely inconsistent. If you look at something like the 9th century Glagolithic manuscripts, you can actually see that they used dasias, so the spiritus asper, on all initials. And the spiritus lentis, or lenis, I thought it was a lentis, but lenis, okay, were used pretty rarely, and then it changes again. Then in 1350, which is when this second wave of Slavic migrations happens, and the second church wave, if you want to call it like that, the second wave of South Slavic influence is the official name. That's when Bulgarian starts changing, and that's when a book is written by a guy, I don't remember his name, and he basically advocates that the spiritus asper should only be used on Ižica. So if you use the Ižica, you should use it there. So it's very inconsistent. But by the, I would say, the 14th century, Russian doesn't use the spiritus asper anymore. It just doesn't occur anymore. Only the spiritus lentis is used, or lenis, and it was used on initial vowels, right? Church wave sounds like a dope genre of music. Yeah. You will, if you read like old texts, you'll encounter it 100%. But okay, let's do this. So keep talking. So f, slozye, ik, I, u. So I have two problems. First one is v, so this is in, right? Slozye. Does anyone know why the word slog turned into slozye? Does anyone know why the g turned into a z? It's just organ music with reverb. So basically what happened was there's this thing called the South Slavic wave, or the second wave of palatalization, right? The second Slavic palatalization, in which certain consonants changed value. One of these is the g. So in Polish, for example, you have gwiazda, which is zviezda in Croatian, and yeah, exactly, classic second palatalization. So this g sound started changing. In Macedonian, this became dz in some constructions. Some dialects of Bulgarian also use that, like dzid, which is wall, or dzvonit, like to call or to ring. And in South Slavic, this became z. In certain cases, in the dative and the locative, if I remember by heart. And then Russian didn't do this. Well, they did, but then analogy changed it back. So in modern Russian, this would be po slozye, right? Second regressive palatalization. Perfect. So slozye, ik, i, u. But in modern Russian, this would be slogye, ik, i, u. And there we can see this ik, which kind of makes us wonder, did he call this ik? Well, no, u is used as well. So u was probably the name of this letter, while ik was probably the name of this letter, like the smaller one. So at least what I think. We cannot find it. Zvonit is not palatalization. Oh no, zvonit is actually onomatopoeic, right? So that's like guff guff and stuff like that. My bad, yeah. So slozye, ik, i, u. So in the syllable ik, so the one form and the second form, i, u, однако гласуют. So they will sound the same. And now that I started this, I realized that I forgot the pictures. So let's go back. Ucha, ucho, that's ear. Then we have uzel. In modern Russian, this is uziel, and that's a knot or a bindle or knapsack. So this sack or a knot basically that you can carry on your back, like a backpack, like a primitive backpack. And this is a very common early East Slavic term, usierjazia. So this is actually the, I don't know, less common form. Usually you will encounter this word with a g, but this one is with a z, and it's earring. Modern Russian doesn't use this anymore, but you can still see it somewhere. So in Russian, this would be sergi, right? So earrings. Usierjazia. Sierjaz, where we have it, g, siergi. That's the earring. Interesting thing is there's an even older term for this. That's naushnica. In Croatian, we still use this, naushnica, which is earring. But in Russian, the meaning shifted. So it doesn't mean earring anymore. It means a snitch. So naushnica means someone who's snitching, while in Croatian, it means earring. Next one would be uzda. So this is a bridle. which is this piece of equipment that you put on a horse's head, and it's a headgear, or wait, that's bridle. Bridle is how you call it, bridle, and horses still use it, still wear it, and it's a very iconic piece of equipment. And then, okay, so this one, oh, actually, I should do this. Ubrusets, right? Ubrusets is полотенце or platok. So this would be something like a towel in modern Russian. And also it's also used as a canvas for icons. It's a very common Church Slavonic term. It's used in Church Slavonic. They usually avoid using something like полотенце, but they prefer using ubrusets. And then we have this. It's kind of weird. To me, this looks like a river. But someone else told me this looks like a mouth. I have a hard time seeing it, but to me this looks like a river. Anyway, this is устье. And yeah, ubrus isn't used in Russian. It's not used in dushnik, if you will. So устье. And in modern Russian, it's written with a t and a soft sign. And this will be like a mouth of a river, but also just устье, like a mouth, like usta in modern Russian. Well, not modern Russian. Modern Russian doesn't use it anymore. They use rot. But usta is the poetic form. Or it could also mean губы. So excuse me, it could also mean губы, which means lips. Usnice in Croatian. So ustje. So with the yats, why does it contain a yats? That's because this is the dual form. At least according to the dictionary I looked it up with, this only occurs in the dual form. I don't quite understand why. Well, usnice, if it's the gube, right, it makes sense. But if it's mouth, then it doesn't. Then we go on. Something like udila. This is also a piece that's used for horses. That's called a bit in English. And it also represents something else, something more poetic, but we will cover this in a second. So this is what we already had. And then we have užišče. Užišče. So this is nothing more than rope. In Russian, this is verevka или канат, which is something like a cable or a rope, something like that. And then the last one, this is also not used in Russian anymore. This is udica. We still use it in South Slavic, but this comes from Proto-Slavic or Ultra-Slavonic onda, which is the best letter ever, obviously. On. A more contemporary but still quite archaic Russian term would be uda, and in modern Russian that would be udочка, which is nothing more than a fishing hook or a fishing rod. Right? Specifically a fishing rod. I don't think in modern Russian it still means like a fishing hook itself. But yeah. And then the text, в слозе ik и u, so we covered this already. So in the syllables ik и u, you pronounce them the same way, or they sound the same way. Then a difficult word, chinom. So with in Russian, chin means rank, like in the army. While in South Slavic, chin means action, at least in Croatian. So by action and look, by action and appearance, v pismie razlikujut. So by action, rank, or appearance, in writing, they differ. So they are differentiated in script, but they sound the same. This is something, obviously, that Old East Slavic does a lot. They use different letters to represent the same thing. But it has a different meaning, basically. So, kto, who, невоздержан. So, to the person who is... wait. Усерьясь женам. This is a very interesting sentence. So, усерьясь женам. So this is dative, plural. So two women, earrings, uzda. So what was uzda? Uzda was this thing, like a bridle. So two women The women earrings are a bridle. Now this can be perceived in different ways. So like it's necessary, or what's probably meant is uzda, because it has a second meaning, and that would be burden. So to women, carrying these naushnice, so these earrings, is a burden. And it makes sense if you look further. I jeziku, so jeziku, so this should actually be cut off right there. It's a different sentence. And the tongue, jeziku kto nie воздержан, so, and the language or tongue to the person who is not careful about he speaks, престанеши крику. So he will stop screaming. Перестать is the modern Russian version. Престанеши, the old future two, screaming. So it's really complicated, but basically what I understand is carrying this for women is a burden, and the tongue to the person, or a person's tongue who is not careful about how he speaks, will stop screaming, because maybe he will die, he will be put to death, he will, have consequences for the way he speaks. Хорошо. Then the next one, удицы греха. So the fish hook of sin, and then we can see the аксанкав, о душе стрегися. So this is a very interesting form of the letter omega. And omega was also copied from Greek, and in archaic Greek, or I should say classical Greek, ancient Greek, there were two different sounds the letters O and omega could make. So the omega made the sound O, which was a long sound, and you had O, or O, which was used for the omicron. But when it got copied into Slavic, Slavic didn't have this distinction. It had pitch, but it didn't really differentiate. So the omega, using the omega in Old Church Slavonic, Old East Slavic, and modern Church Slavonic is completely arbitrary. Nowadays there are rules relating to when one should use it, but they were it was basically used randomly. It was seen as the more beautiful letter. But in this case, this form is what we call the broad omega. And the broad omega only had one function, and it was as an interjection or a vocative marker, is how Pursa put it. And a vocative marker basically says that it indicates that the next noun that's coming is in the vocative case. And you can see that as well. Duše is the Old Church Slavonic vocative of soul. So, oh, soul. Like, it could also indicate something like ole, or like, oh God, can you please, something like that, right? English doesn't obviously have the vocative case, but the vocative case basically means that if I'm addressing you directly, I'm going to be using that case. So something like Maria, Maria in English, if I wanted to say something like Maria, I would say Mario, right? I would change the ending. This is something that Croatian does. This is something that Greek does. Russian used to do this. They actually are going through a phase called Electric Boogaloo number 2, vocative 2. And, Andro, nice to have you, man. See ya. Bye. In which they're kind of reviving this, something like Masha is turning into Mash. So if you want to address Masha, you would say, Mash, пожалуйста, можешь, па-па-па-па. So, long explanation, but so this is udici greha, so in the fishhook of rod of sin, o duše stregися. So, o soul, watch out to not get caught in this web or the fishhook of sin, right? Užem, so blажнов. Okay, so this would be something like with the rope. Užem, so instrumental case, with the rope of temptation, prošu не свяжися. So don't bind yourself with the rope of temptation. or don't entangle yourself in the rope of temptation. Slovo zakona, so the word of the law, stavi v tvojem usie. So this is again a weird form because you would expect something like ustie, but this means something like the word of the law, put it in your mouth or on your lips. Live the law, right? Be careful not to do things that are illegal, basically. And then держи вся уде. So hold on to the bit, which is the part of the horse, but this actually has no mouth, ucho. Usia. Oh, that actually makes sense, yeah. Слово закона ставит в твоем усе. I don't know if h changes to yeah, you're right. You're right. This is correct. So put the word of the law in your ears. That's so nice. You're right. Oh, that's perfect. See, this is why it's nice to have an audience. So that's amazing. Thank you, Daniel. That's perfect. Yeah, put it in your ears. Okay, so держи вся уде. So hold on to this bit, but in this case, it doesn't only mean a bit, but it also means something like temptation. So hold on to, or put this temptation v mudrostnom ubrusie. So ubrus. So put it in a towel of knowledge, something like that. So put the temptation that you have, which is again symbolically expressed, and wrap it in a towel of knowledge so that it doesn't come out, that it doesn't see the daylight, right? It doesn't experience, doesn't come to life. And then the last two sentences. So we can see titlo. So this is the nomina sacra, sacred word for God. So Bog, человеки, so accusative. So God loves the people, takovia любит. So the people who wrap this temptation in a blanket of knowledge, God loves those people because they can resist temptation and they can fight against evil, I think. And then терпящим в правде, so терпеть in modern Russian, which would be to endure, right? To endure in truth or justice. Везде, everywhere. Mzdu, and in Ultra Slavonic this means reward. Mizda or mizda in Ultra Slavonic, and sugubit. This is an old East Slavic word which means doubles. And Dog and I looked for this for quite a while. So basically says, did they pronounce Bog as Bog? Yeah, so in church texts, and actually in, I think in the vernacular as well. Well, church text, the g was used, right? Something like the Ukrainian sound. But they were already devoicing final consonants. This has actually been happening since like the 14th century already, because we have evidence in the Повесть временных лет, so that would be the old, how do you say it in English? Tale of bygone years, that certain scribes were already making mistakes when it comes to the final consonants. So a word that would end with a b, scribes would write it like b. It happened quite inconsistently, but we already have evidence that this was happening in the 14th century. Another example would be something like the Novgorod birch bark letters, in which a lot of these mistakes are made. Because the birch bark, obviously, people really didn't care about the way they wrote. You can see the love letters from the 14th century. You can see threatening messages. You can see, something like bribes. Like, you have to read them. Just look them up. It's amazing stuff. But anyway, so to endure in truth. So if you endure and persevere in truth or in justice, your reward in heaven will eventually double, right? So when you come to heaven, even though heaven is not mentioned specifically, your reward will double. That's it, guys. I think that's it. Took me a little bit less than 2 hours, which is nice. Are there any questions related to these 4 words? Something else you guys want to know? So this one is still quite interesting. I'm not sure about it, but so again, I really want to thank Van Dog for helping me out. Without him, all of this wouldn't have been possible. Amazing guy, incredibly helpful and kind. Oh, something I can show you guys, actually. So remember this Riza, right? The old credit card number, expiry date, 3 numbers. I'll send it to you in PM. So this means this garment, right? That the priests were wearing. You can actually see the pravoslavne. So you can see the Eastern Orthodox name for this, Filon, and this will happen in the next stream. So in the next stream, we'll cover this. Just a sec. Fanar, Phoenix, Russian or Greek words. Okay, I would like to know, so a video from you about the kids' homework. So the kid's name is Onfim. And the guy's a legend. The guy's an absolute legend. So I think the kid was like 8 or 9, and he basically drew himself like riding horses, killing people. Can you imagine? Like this kid is 8 or something like that, and he was drawing himself stabbing people, because at that time, that's what these kids were doing. Actually, let me show you guys. I can find that. Onfim рисунки. Да, могу. Look at this. Look at this legend. So this is him. What a god. Подожди. Где-то. There we go. So I plan on calling it Onfim. Катя, привет. Я не знаю, что ты тут тоже. Ой, я не думаю, что он убивал кого-то, либо в детстве он... Нет. Он правда здесь кого-то убивает. So this is a horse. Obviously this looks like a horse, right? Well, he didn't kill anyone, but he drew himself. So this is a guy that he killed. Basically, this is like a weapon or a lance that he was carrying. And this is him riding his horse. And this is his azbuka. So the alphabet that he was writing, right? So A, B, V, G, D, Y, but the old form Ya, Z. There's no Z though. It's kind of interesting. G. This is the old Z form. N. And this is, look at how he wrote his name. So you would expect something like Onfim, right? With a yer, because at this period of time, he didn't. This sound was just disappearing. So maybe he pronounced it, maybe he didn't. But he doesn't use the f. He uses the fita. Just a sec. Or fita in Russian, which is the th sound. So technically, this would be something like Onfim, but the th sound wasn't used in the Russian lands, but he preferred to use that one. So it's Onfim. And this S sound, this ending actually indicates that this is the vocative case. So he refers to himself as Onfim, but in the vocative case, which is not something people usually do. You would never refer to yourself in the vocative case. But obviously it doesn't matter. This kid is a legend. And let me show you another drawing, because it's insane. Look at this. What a god. Посмотри. This is something he drew. So look at the eyes. Also the torso doesn't like end. So this guy's looking like, wait, what's happening? And then his face. Again, same thing. Onfim. So vocative case of Onfim, right? He has some other drawings. Why I said killing, by the way, is because there's, well, there was, sadly, it was a Russian professor called Zalizniak who basically wrote 4 books on this. And he even published like a huge paper. It's incredible about the development of Old Novgorodian and stuff. This kid was on. And he used the term. So he also said that he already, from a young age, he was drawing to be killing and stuff like that. Not something I made up. But yeah, and this is what it looks like. Look at these drawings. Look at them dancing. It's amazing. They're dancing, and then this one, which is ab, av, de, ye. Actually, you can see one of my community posts, I drew this, one of them. But yeah, I'll be covering this. Maybe in a stream, maybe a video, something. I'm gonna do this 100%. Oh, Manel, brate, kako si? Get that. So yeah, these hands, they're rakes, basically. And this is some animal or whatever. Писать разные виды писем словами поклон от... this is something else. Поклон от Onfima к Даниле. So поклон means hello, basically. And in the Birchbark letters, you can often encounter the first word in these letters is paklon, which means bowing down, right? From Onfim k Danilje. So it's probably hello from Onfim to Danil. Danil was his friend. So Danilje, this would be the dative case instead of Danilu. So Danilje. Paklon for me. So, but yeah, so guys, thank you very much. This is probably going to be it. If there are any more questions, you can, this video is going to stay up. So I'm going to just save everything and then it's going to be right there. If you want to support the channel, you can. There's a Patreon, but I never charge anything if I don't upload. So don't worry about like paying for anything that you don't want or you cannot, simply because I don't ever want to charge patrons for things that I cannot deliver on. I think the second tier is like I have a Discord channel where some friends of mine or the patrons and I discuss all of these things day and night. So we talk about these projects and I share documents. So if you wanna join, feel free to join. And yeah, so I put it in the link, but obviously don't feel obliged to do so. It's completely optional. But it basically allows me to make videos like this because through work and university, it's kind of hard to find time. About future content, that's something that's interesting. I have 2 videos that are basically done. First one is kind of a collab, even though, well, there's not really collab. Another YouTuber helped me out with some very interesting stuff. It's not Slavic. But it does, well, it is Slavic, but it's not from a Slavic language. So that's nice. And then the second one is about Ultra Slavonic. So hopefully that will be up pretty soon. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but it takes just a lot of time and everything. So if there are any questions, let me know. If not, thank you so much for coming. Must be Romanian. Who knows? Спасибо вам большое, что приехали или смотрели. Thank you again. Thank you for coming. And thank you. I hope you all enjoyed it. That's the most important thing. So take care. Спасибо большое и увидимся. Давайте, пока.